by the power of Grayskull.
Hello, viewers of Sounding Board, and we're back to talk about He-Man Revelations. It's late. I'm recording this at 12:30 a.m. and I had a long day of work today, so I'm a bit tired. So you're gonna have to bear with me as I talk about Kevin Smith's masterpiece. Yeah, masterpiece, my ass. It's a masterpiece of masterful gaslighting and lies. Did I enjoy the show? Yeah, as a what if, but not as canon, because truth of the matter is there's a lot of stuff I didn't like about it. And it's like, I understand the changes. I don't agree with them, because shoehorning characters by tokenizing them and making them saying that it's time for Teela to spotlight is the wrong attitude for a He-Man show. Maybe I should have taken the hint when I saw it was just called Master Universe, not He-Man and the Master Universe. That should have been the audience's whole truth to begin with, that this show wasn't going to be about He-Man. It was going to be about random, not even random, Masters of the Universe characters. Since we go to watch He-Man and his sidekicks or secondary characters all rotate in order from adventure to adventure to what is needed. It's kind of like Brave and the Bold or DC Presents or Marvel 2-in-1. You had a story, and then they had, like, let's take for example the same Thing, and the Thing has to go up to S.H.I.E.L.D. So who will they team S.H.I.E.L.D. him up with? Nick Fury, of course, or Black Widow. Back in the 70s, it's before Captain America became a more pertinent and character in S.H.I.E.L.D. And so the Thing and the S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury would go through the helicarrier trying to figure out what the Hydra agents or AIM or MODOK wanted to do with the helicarrier, or what MODOK's plans were within the helicarrier to stop it. And so the Thing and like Nick Fury would go on a random adventure, and then the month after, sometimes they would continue into 2 issues, but Nick Fury wouldn't continue to the next one. It'd be a Black Widow, another character with S.H.I.E.L.D. And then the story would end, and then the Thing would reset, and then the Thing would be the Thing with Spider-Man, because it's in the middle of New York City. But let me quit rattling on about Marvel 2-in-1s and them. But people go, why did you talk about DC Comic Presents? That's where He-Man first appeared. Well, because I really didn't want to talk about it, because it's one of those series. It's one of those things is that right now, it's like I have mixed feelings about Revelation, but I don't have mixed feelings about Kevin Smith. I've always thought he was a dick. And he's more so now because he doesn't really care. He's very insensitive, very narcissistic acting. And it's like, you're not a nerd. You're a hipster, or gaslighting us, making us believe that you really are You're like a Big Bang Theory, but in actuality, you're the jock pretending to be a nerd. Because if you can rally a lot of nerdy, goofy guys to sympathize with your stories and your movies, which you're not, and you're different than the characters in your movies, that's a big thing too. You know, and so I basically saw the show with COVID Katie, and she enjoyed it that night. But as she stopped to think about it, even she digressed into there's problems with it. It was her first opportunity to ever watch He-Man in action, and she gets cheated out of it because he dies in the initial episode. And then Teela goes on a quest to find the two swords to reforge the power sword, and they find Adam. Then allegedly the cliffhanger is Adam is killed again. How fair is that to the people who want to see He-Man? You see him in flashbacks of her telling her story or reminiscing, but it's not enough. We want to see He-Man. We don't want to see the secondary characters unless they're in secondary roles. Because like Superman, we want to see the main character. Because like My Little Ponies, mothers got to share a moment in time as their childhood of the ponies still being ponies. They're not the same look, but they act a lot the same way as the originals. They're all different characters from the shows and each incarnation. But the characters all have personality. And they didn't retcon saying this is a continuation of the old My Little Ponies. No. As the show progressed, and storylines grew, they included old villains and finished old storylines from the original show, the older ponies. But they didn't go, this is a sequel to your My Little Ponies, and you can bring your kids to see this. And that's where the big problem is happening right now with this series. And so this is why I'm really divided. If this was like sold as what if He-Man was killed and how will people of Eternia deal with it, this would have been great. And instead, we get this series of innuendos and changing, like everyone's beginning to see Andrea is going to become the new He-Man. Why is it called He-Man when you're putting a female in the lead role? You have She-Ra for that. That's why Mattel created the She-Ra line. He-Man was the boys' line. You know, they don't want to let boys have strong characters anymore. They don't want boys to go out and be boys. Boys to go out and be who they really are, you know, just boys. You know, they want them to be emasculated eunuchs almost. And that's wrong as well, because in the long run, you got to ask yourself, what kind of people are they going to become? They're not going to be very strong people or emotionally stable. That's one thing for sure, because playing video games doesn't teach a child emotional fiber. Moral fiber. Because there is no moral fiber or even story in video games. People will argue that there is when there really isn't, because most people insert themselves as the main character. That's why the character is vague, and a lot of games are first person or over the shoulder. So then you feel you're in the control of that character. It doesn't matter if he's white. It doesn't matter if he's Anglo or whatever. Once you turn that game on, you forget and you make that character to be you. And a lot of times, a lot of games will allow you the luxury to change the character's name. And so a lot of people will put their name as the character they're playing. That was actually, ironically, the entire point of why He-Man says, I have the power. So a boy could sit there with his dad or sit in the front yard in the front living room while dad watched TV to relax and mom and play with his He-Man figures. And he was He-Man for that moment, you know. And that's what I think really Kevin Smith forgot, is that He-Man was designed to make boys, young men, feel that they had the power. Because at that growing age, you're learning morals and you're learning responsibility, and so your parents will scold you. You break something, you got to learn to replace it and stuff like that. And then the Filmation show, like G.I. Joe and many others of the 80s, had a moral at the end of it, or a PSA, and talked about right and wrong and the moral of the story they were trying to commute to the children. So if you were just watching it for the random violence, as they would say, you always had the PSA to explain what the writers were trying to do. But we'll leave it there, and until next time, this is the Sounding Board, signing off.